Okay, so the idea here, the notching is the hardest part, right? So I've got to get this very thin. If you're notching, see, I have a very narrow notching tool. I can get this very, very narrow, right? Very delicate. But the thing is, if your thickness of your workpiece is much, or is thicker than your tool, you're gonna have a hard time, right? The tool needs to be a little thicker than, or at least as thick as the workpiece, right? I think there might be a ratio there that I'm not really familiar with. Let's see. If your tool is thinner than your workpiece, it's going to be difficult. So ideally, you want to have them around the same thickness. And not thicker, not too much thicker. You don't want your tool too much thicker than your workpiece. But as you get thinner, there's a line there that when you cross it, your tool starts to break and suffer, trying to nap through the material. With natural materials. Now, the same is probably not true with metal. I can nap thick stone with very narrow metal tools. So, yeah, it doesn't apply. It's not the same thing with metal. I'm running out of room. But I got to get this very thin, so I'm just preparing it. Hopefully I'll be able to get it thin enough. I'm finding that the pad is starting to interfere. Let's see. I don't know if I want to use the leather roll. It's very flexible. I could snap this whole thing. But I want the flakes to travel. I don't want the pad to stop the flakes. And if I get a step fracture or an island in the middle, I'm screwed. I don't want the pad to create an island in the middle where I can't get through there and thin it down. So would abrading help that? It might, because it helps to drive, if you do it right, because you have to be very careful with antler. You don't want to braid too much. But if you do it right, I think it may help you run longer flakes. Because I'm not getting the best flakes. Need a lot of stepping. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to lose some off the base. I'll be a little more patient with these pressure flakes. Do my setups a little better, look at the pathway of the flake a little better. Yeah, it's getting thin, but I need it to be a lot thinner than that. I think maybe if I'm smart about how I'm scratching the edge, I can actually sharpen my pressure flaker at the same time. Ouch. Crushing. Come on. Well, I'm gonna have to go back to the solid pad or the rigid pad here in a little bit. I'm getting too much squishiness. That's an actual flint knapping term, by the way. Too much squishiness in the pad is not good. I don't know. I'm losing a lot of material. Okay, it's way too thick, but I think I'm just going to go for it anyway with the notching. You can see the massive difference in thickness. Well, let's see. I could try a little bit more thinning from the base. Let's see, I could try thinning from the corners. Kind of risky. But since this is where I'll be notching, it might work. It's risky because it can blow off too much of the corner. But that was a good flake. I may end up with a point smaller than my pattern, but oh well. Because I am losing a lot of that corner. But I like the flake that just got removed. Yeah. I like that, that flake travel there. So if Ishi didn't use natural materials, and he did not abrade when he was using metal, why am I not abrading when I'm using natural materials? I don't have to be doing it this way. I'm doing it this way because it's harder. And that's what makes an interesting video. Obviously, well, not obviously, but we assume that he learned not to abrade from his ancestors. And the knapping tradition probably goes back all the way to using natural materials. So it's possible they didn't do much abrading with the natural materials, and it carried over to the other modern material styles of knapping. Alright, so I've lost quite a bit trying to thin the base, and I don't think I got very far. Although it's alright, I guess. Not too bad. Alright, so a little more thinning on the base, and then I'm going to go for the notches. I am getting some step fracturing. Took a big chunk off of that side trying to get a flake to go further to knock off those steps. I did get the step fractures off, but it leaves me vulnerable now to snappage on the barb. Oh well, let's see what I can do. If worst comes to worst, I'll just delete the video and start over again. So it's pretty narrow. It's like it's less. It's about a 32nd of an inch, maybe a little bit more. It's less than a 16th, that's for sure. And I think the opening on these narrow entry notches is a 16th, but I gotta look. I'm gonna go as narrow as I can. I'm not gonna promise anything. Everybody knows that notching is the hardest part in abo knapping. I think that's pretty fair to say. That and making fulsome points. Requires a lot of skill in both of those. Which means I'm in trouble. I might have already stalled that out. If I mess up this side, it won't matter. I'll just have to start on another one. The problem I'm having is it's wearing away on my tool, and that when it wears away, each succeed, or how do I say? Each flake pop out after gets harder and harder as the tool gets more and more worn. Each succeeding flake gets harder and harder. And if I'm not careful, it bottoms out and stalls. So yeah, that's about as deep as I dare to go. I still got a long ways to go before the neck is narrow enough to match the real one, or the duplicate. So I'm going to have to get adventurous here. It's still really thick. I mean, the body is really thick too. Let me see. And I should probably thin out the rest of this blade and then finish up the notches, because if I finish out the base right now or the stem right now and then try to do a lot of heavy pressure on the blade, I might snap these off. Right now they're delicate, but they're not as delicate as they'll be if I deepen these notches somehow. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the blade, get it thinned down, and I'll do that on the next video. I'm already a little bit narrow, not too bad. I just can't lose any more of the width there. I'm okay on the length, I think. Yeah, because this one's longer than the original. All right.